How you doing? It's Friday afternoon, and there's been some big news obviously breaking last night in the world of Premier League football. Not directly Arsenal related, but it may well affect our club as well as we move forward. Of course, here we are talking about the takeover of Newcastle United, which of course happened last night. So it's a big story for football, Premier League football in particular. I have got a very special guest joining me, a Newcastle fan, so he's obviously still delighted about the news, but we'll discuss how it affects Newcastle and how it affects perhaps other clubs in the Premier League as well going forward. All that will be coming up after this. So you saw from intro there joining me, it's Billy, of course, Newcastle fan with a big smile on his face, as I'm sure most Newcastle fans have got today still after the news yesterday. How are you doing today, Billy? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Bit of a hangover, but apart from that, I'm great.
I can imagine. I mean, first of all, obviously, you guys must be actually over the moon with the takeover. I mean, what have you made of it? It's taken a long time, hasn't it?
I was always positive. There's quite deep implications about why it wasn't sent through in the first place. I think they might get pushed under the carpet now. But on the whole, it happened so quickly. Really haven't had time to think. Say quickly, in the beginning of the week, we had no idea this was happening so quick. We had court cases to come and things like that to try and push it through. But 48 hours ago, it broke that the things that were stopping it going through had been lifted, and 24 hours after that, it was all done and dusted. So yeah, it was kind of quick, but great at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I know how you guys was feeling about obviously Mike Ashley and his kind of reign at the club and the direction that the club have been heading in, which is not what you guys would have been wanting at all. And I suppose, listening to Amanda Staveley's yesterday, her interviews and stuff like that, it seems as though this takeover, they've got a plan in place for the club to move it forward and possibly to be challenging the likes of Manchester City, who have got maybe less money than you guys now. I mean, do you actually think that is going to be the plan that the club have got, or is at the moment do you think it's just like it's all talk because they want to get everyone on their side?
No, I believe with the amount of finance they've got behind them, I think what they're aiming for, they can aim for whatever they like. I think seriously, we're 10 times richer than the owners of Man City. So obviously that's not all going to be plowed at the football club, but they're starting from a much higher base than the owners of Man City did. So yeah, why not? I mean, the sky's the limit really, but you can't just do it in one foul swoop, obviously. But I imagine, as she says, within 5 to 10 years, then yeah, maybe we'll be up there alongside Man City, Chelsea, them kind of clubs.
Do you not feel possibly though that maybe, obviously the Premier League were opposing this takeover, wasn't they, initially for quite a long time, and they were against it. So I just got a little nagging feeling that possibly now they might put in new rules in place in terms of spending and stuff like that. Do you think that might be possible because they didn't want it to happen in the first place, did they?
I thought I'd crossed my mind, I must be honest. Yeah. The Premier League were pushed allegedly by foreign states not to allow the whole takeover. It's political as much as it is from a financial point of view. But that's another story that would have come out in the CAT case that was due to happen pretty soon. Don't think that'll happen now. So I think what happened last week, we had a CAT case last week that was streamed live over Microsoft Teams in courts. 33,000 people watched it live for a court case. And what happened at this court case was the Premier League's lawyer came on, said a lot of things, but after a whole day of debating and talking, he actually was found out to have not the rights. He wasn't on the right side of the argument. Even the judge said so. And I think the Premier League finally realised that we're on the wrong side of the court here. We're on a losing battle, and it's strange that a week later it's all done and dusted. So, from a legal point of view, I think they were in the wrong to do that. So maybe that's why it went through so quickly after that.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, I suppose though, they may have been on the wrong side of the law, maybe the Premier League, but obviously when it comes to their competitions, they can set their own rules, can't they? I guess maybe that could be something that they may think about. I don't know. It does. I mean, I wanted to kind of. I know, obviously, from your point of view, you're over the moon that they've had the takeover and the investment that's probably come in and stuff like that. But in the overall kind of thing for football in general in this country, how do you feel it's what effect do you think that's going to have on the Premier League and maybe even lower down the football scale? Because a lot of money's gone into the top clubs in the Premier League over the years. There's been a lot of outside investment, a lot of Saudi, Dubai investment and stuff like that. What impact do you think that's going to have now? Because obviously it hasn't really been a positive impact on football overall. It's been positive for certain clubs, as it's going to probably be positive for your club. But in terms of football overall, what impact do you think this is going to have?
Well, I mean, Rich, I'm a traditionalist at heart. I mean, I don't think football is the same today as it was 30, 40 years ago. It was a different game then, and anyone could compete at any level. It was a much better game. It's a hard one for me to say now because, as you say, the boot's on the other foot now. But yeah, it doesn't sit right with me on the whole. Let's be honest about that. The Chelsea one was the first one when Abramovich came in. The football to me then kind of lost a bit of competition, and then Man City did it, and it's kind of ebbed away. And it might be that even worse now with it happening for us. But I guess that's just progress, I suppose. If it is progress, it's progress to some people. I love the football of the 90s and the 80s, and when it was before the Premier League even started. So I'm a traditionalist at heart. And I was all for things like wage caps and things like that, and to a certain extent, I still am. And I think it might change football, and maybe not for the better.
I mean, obviously, the North East has always been a kind of a hotbed of football, if you like. It's always been described as that, and there's a lot of local football and junior football and stuff like that is a really big part of the community, isn't it, in the North East? And it has been desperately underfunded for a very long time, not just in the North East, in football in general in this country. I mean, now obviously Newcastle have got this unlimited funds, if you like. Would you like to see the club maybe looking at investing in the local grassroots, junior football and stuff like that, as well as looking to buy players like Mbappe and Haaland and people like that? Do you think that they'd be better off as well spending some money lower down and trying to, because North East used to be a lot of players came through Newcastle at Wolves End Boys Club and stuff like that and made big careers, and that seems to have stopped, doesn't it, in recent years? Is it something that maybe you think Newcastle could really have a go at that and invest in that as well?
I'm sure they will. One of the things that the previous owner neglected in a scandalous fashion was the scouting of local football. So much so, in fact, that there were no Newcastle United scouts around the North East, and actually. The patch had been taken over by Chelsea scouts, which is an absolute disgrace. I think they may get pushed out now, and I think hopefully we can scout around the North East and wherever in England to find young talent, because it's not all about spending money on big name players, as you just said. I mean, I'm a great believer in bringing youth through. It's great. It'd be great for our national game as well as the club game. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the things of the Ashley regime, which was an absolute scandal, that they neglected youth football in the North East and allowed a club like Chelsea with all their money, millions, to just edge their way in and take that patch over. I mean, it was a horrendous thing for them to do, and hopefully that's gone now. But I mean, for all clubs in the country, the aim should be to bring fantastic talent through, spending as least money as possible. Surely it's got to be the best way forward. I was encouraged to see yesterday that the rumours were that we were going to poach Manchester City's academy manager. That's a good sign, in my opinion, that we're not just going to go out and splash billions on players. And building youth through, it's the way forward for it. And it's always been that way, in my opinion. I mean, the most successful sides in England have always been built on youth teams. The Manchester United sides of the 90s, Liverpool sides of the 70s, the Arsenal sides of the 80s and 90s also. Got to be the way forward. Got to be the way forward.
Yeah, it is. I just feel that there's a temptation, certainly I would say, amongst perhaps a Newcastle fan base in general, that you want to see these big name signings come in, and obviously for the team to be challenging at the top of the league, which I guess is what the takeover is all about to a certain degree. But yeah, I feel it's really important that Newcastle have got an opportunity now, haven't they, to really make a statement in football. I think Manchester City, in a way, although they have spent a lot of money on players, they have completely changed the way they run the whole club, haven't they, from the bottom upwards. And you can see that, although it's been funded maybe in the wrong way initially, you could say, they've got a plan in place, unlike Chelsea, who don't seem to have much of a plan at all. They never seem to have done. They just, are living from season to season, aren't they? Whereas Man City, at least they do seem to have a plan. And Newcastle now have got an opportunity to do something similar and possibly better, because Newcastle are starting at probably a better base than Manchester City were back then, because
you've got to remember that the link between the Man City takeover and the Newcastle takeover is actually Amanda Staveley. She's the one that set the Man City takeover up. That was supposed to be for Mike Ashley to sell to those people back in 2008-9. He didn't turn up to the meeting. He stayed in the casino, and that's why they didn't buy us then. They bought Man City, and the rest history. But this was Amanda Staveley's plan for them, so she's going to have the same plan, and like you say, maybe an improved plan for us along them lines, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think if that's going to be the case, then it will maybe offset the fact that as we sort of mentioned, football going down that kind of not the right route, I believe. But if it's going to be used in the right way, then it's going to be a positive, isn't it? Not just for Newcastle, but for English football, as you said, in general, for the national team and grassroots football up and down the country, and that's what it should be about, really. It's all very well, and I can understand why the fans are getting excited. If we had a similar takeover, I'm sure our fans would be the same, dreaming about winning the Premier League and winning the Champions League, all that kind of stuff. And that's what being a football fan's about, isn't it? Having those dreams and hoping that one day they might well come true. And for you guys, that one day might not be as far away as you thought. And and I'm sure we feel
it's been long enough already, Rich. It's been enough.
No, exactly. It's been longer for you than it has for me. But no, I mean, I feel as though it is an opportunity for Newcastle to really help the whole situation in football in a positive way. Now they've got this investment. As you say, Amanda Staveley does seem as though she's got the right ideas anyway, like you say with Man City, because I know that was the plan for Newcastle all those years ago, wasn't it? And you may have been in a similar position to them now, but this is all for the future, isn't it? And it's going to take time. I mean, immediately now, obviously with the money coming in, obviously there's no transfer window now until January, but what would you like to see the club do first of all with this investment that they've got? What would the priority be for you?
First things first, get the manager away from the club as quickly as possible. We need a new manager before the Spurs game. I mean, all this furore and adoration that's going to be there for the new board and owners week Sunday against Tottenham. Imagine how flat that'll be if Steve Bruce leads the team out. I don't believe that will happen. I think he'll be gone by the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. A new manager will be. I'm sure they'll have got a new manager already thought about to come in, whoever that is. So that'll be the first thing. See what happens between now and Christmas, and then that kind of dictates what kind of investment will be needed in January. We may still be in the bottom three. So I think they may need to spend, I don't know, 80 to 100 million in January. It's harder to spend in January than it is in the summer. We know that. But yeah, I think we'll be needing to strengthen centre halves. We need at least 2 centre halves. We certainly need another striker, maybe a midfield player too. So there's quite a lot of areas in that side that need strengthening in. Whether it's to stay up or whether it's to progress up the table, time will tell.
I mean, I suppose the good thing in a way is it's still very early in the season. And if you do change your manager now, not an awful lot of damage has been done. Yes, you haven't had a great start, no wins yet, but it's still very early. The league's quite congested. So 2 or 3 wins makes a massive difference, doesn't it? So that's a positive side. I mean, I know I've listened to a lot of Newcastle podcasts, the Toon Review and stuff like that. And I get the feeling that there's a few issues behind the scenes in terms of the training ground and things like that. Is that an area that you think that they'll look at investing in straight away and maybe improving that side of the club as well as on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, we've got players. No, they don't have ice baths. They have wheelie bins full of ice. They're recuperating in plastic paddling pools. It's a disgrace. It looks like a Little Benton looks like a schoolyard. It's so out of date. It's not been invested in for years since Bobby Robson was there. I imagine a brand new training centre, medical centre, will be high on the list of priorities for the new people. And it's been long. We're waiting for far too long for something like that to happen. So yeah, that's why we're getting all these injuries. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously it seems to be a link, doesn't there? Having said that, I mean, Arsenal have got the state-of-the-art facilities, and we've still got serious injury problems. So, maybe it's to do with the diets or whatever it might be, recuperation and stuff like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, that would certainly make a big difference, wouldn't it, if you can get that side of it sorted out as well. I know it's not always that simple, is it? Because if you're going to have to move to a different venue, it's going to be finding the right place and all that kind of stuff. It can take a lot of time, can't it? And in the short term, that's probably not going to be happening straight away, is it? That's going to be more of a long-term issue, really. I mean, in terms of manager, obviously, I know you want Steve Bruce out, and I know you've wanted him out for a while, as most Newcastle fans have, if not all. Who would be your choice then? Now, obviously, you want him out this weekend, which it may well happen. Who would you like to see come in?
Well, the rumours are Conte, but I mean, I'm not sure he'll come. I think we're looking at someone like an Eddie Howe or Frank Lampard, someone young, English and hungry. Doesn't have to be in English necessarily, but young and hungry. Eddie Howe would be the ideal choice, really, because there's quite a few players there he already knows. He'd be sort of stepping in and hitting the ground running because he knows the players. And maybe give him a short-term contract, see how he does. He's not working, so I'm sure he's been sounded out by the consortium already. So he'd be the ideal choice for me, Eddie Howe. And at least we'll see a side playing football in the way it's meant to be played and not players in the wrong positions everywhere every week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that you've mentioned Eddie Howe. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good coach, because I believe he is, and he does play a good style of football. But obviously, he did his last season in the Premier League. He did get relegated. I know Bournemouth are a completely different club, different model to Newcastle. But would that not be a worry though? Maybe that obviously you're in the relegation zone at the moment. Bringing in a manager who got relegated on his last season in the Premier League, does that not seem like maybe the wrong choice at the moment?
I think when these things happen to managers, it sometimes solidifies things that they've done wrong in the past, and they do things different. I mean, Eddie Howe, obviously, he might come into a side with much better players in. He'll have money to spend in January. I think he'll be fine. He did so well at Bournemouth, if you think about it. Took them into the Premiership, kept them there for 2 or 3 years. Inevitably, at some stage, they were going to go down because the investment wasn't really what a Premiership side needs, which would have happened to us as well, because our investment hasn't been anything like what it should have been. And I think with a bit of investment in January, I think he'll be fine. Yeah, I think whether they give him a long-term contract or not, but definitely something to end of the season, see how he does. If he does well, then give him some more and see what happens from there. But yeah, if Conte was to come in now, that'd be fantastic. It would be, but I'm not sure. I know he'd have to do a project to start, Antonio Conte, and it would be fantastic if he came in. He'd be the fantastic choice, but I'm not sure that he would actually come in. But if he did, great. If it is, obviously he'd be my choice. But would he be? Would we be his choice? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you wouldn't have thought so before. But if he knows that he's going to have money to spend to build his team over the next sort of 2 or 3 transfer windows, then he might look at that and think, yeah, that's a project he can really get behind. Perhaps. I mean, I would say that with the investment that's likely to be coming to Newcastle, that's the sort of caliber of manager that you should be looking at, I think, now, because you can't buy anybody till January, and whoever comes in's got this group of players for the next sort of 2 months, 3 months, until they can get a couple in January. But I would say that surely as a lot, you want to plan for the next 3 or 4 years now and get a manager in who can take the club forward. And I'm not sure if Eddie Howe, yes, for a short-term basis, he could well do a decent job, but for a long-term project that Newcastle have clearly got now, I think they should be setting their sights a bit higher. No disrespect to Eddie Howe, I like Eddie Howe, but for that project, it seems like maybe should be aiming higher than him. And Conte would be a good choice, wouldn't he? Let's be fair. Allegri,
that'd be fantastic choice if we could get him in. Yeah, 100%. If he'd come in, that he'd be the ideal man for the job. But let's be honest, if Eddie Howe was managing our side now and had been there since the beginning of the season, we wouldn't be sitting in 19th place now. We'd be 5 or 6 places higher than that, because the quality of manager we have at the moment he's statistically the worst the Premiership's ever had. So, yeah, anything to improve on the Steve Bruce. Let's just be honest, say it that way.
Well, it would certainly seem that way, wouldn't it? I suppose, but yeah, I mean, it's Yeah, I mean, it's difficult time, isn't it? Because it is in between the transfer windows, and obviously at the moment Newcastle are in the relegation zone, and some managers might look at that and think, I don't want to go there. I don't want anything to do with that, because they're the ones who's going to get the criticism if it doesn't work. That's the problem, I suppose, as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a strange time. Ideally, you'd want to take over track in the summer, wouldn't you? When you can bring a manager in, they can buy a few players, and you can go from there. But unfortunately, you can't do anything about the timing. We've got a comment in the chat there from Dave from the Out and Out Gunners podcast. He says that he was at St James's Park 3 years ago for Newcastle v Palace, and the game sold out, and tickets being majority in demand. Newcastle are a top club with brilliant fans. Yeah, I mean, I think all football fans would agree with it. Anyone that's been to St James's Park, I mean, I've been lots of times to see Arsenal play there, and I've been to a few other games there. And yeah, it's the place itself. I mean, everyone in Newcastle is a Newcastle fan. It's part of life, isn't it? And and the club and fans have suffered a lot in recent years with relegations, and the club really going nowhere. And I suppose it's when you look at it, I mean, Chelsea got taken over, Man City have got taken over, and perhaps when you look at the history of those clubs and the fan base and stuff like that, you could say, did they really deserve that? Maybe not. But I don't think any football fan, a neutral football fan, would begrudge it to be a club like Newcastle being invested in that way. And if it turns out that Newcastle end up, winning the Premier League and being in the Champions League or that kind of stuff, I don't think too many other fans would. Yeah, everybody gets a little bit jealous, don't you, when you see that happening? But for a club like Newcastle, I mean, my issue's always been with Chelsea and Man City is that they didn't deserve it, because they were fairly small clubs historically, won the odd trophy here and there. And yeah, Newcastle haven't won anything for a long time, but in the history of football, Newcastle have always been a big club. At the start of football, they were winning league titles. They were one of the most successful teams in football, wasn't they? Going back 100 years or whatever. But they've always been a big name, and I feel as though it's totally different this time with a club like Newcastle having the investment as opposed to a Chelsea or a Man City. As you can see, Man City can't even fill their ground now. That just shows what the club is, where the club are from, really. And I think it is different for Newcastle, and you can imagine what impact that will have on the city of Newcastle if the team are in the Champions League, winning Premier League. Can you imagine what would happen if Newcastle won the Premier League? What would happen in Newcastle for probably a week or 2 weeks after that? It'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
I was there the week before. I would say it was the 95-96 season, the one we should have won. Yeah. The week before the season ended, I was in Newcastle, and the place was hyped to the max. We had 3 games in the week. If we'd have won all 3, we had a chance of winning the title. We drew with Forest, so that's kind of ended that. But if we'd have won all 3, we'd have probably we might well have won the title. The atmosphere was hyped to the max. It was, there's people all over the place. Even on going out for the night with black and white tops on and Newcastle shirts on. That was then. That was not even. But if you did win something, good grief. Place would take off. It really would. I mean, you see the scenes last night outside the ground. There was 10,000 there. It's waiting for success. It's been crying out for it for so long. I think you'll see a massive outpouring of emotion if it happened.
Yeah, I mean, like you said last night, you kind of got a feeling of that anyway. Just when the takeover was announced and into the night, I was seeing all the pictures on the news and stuff, and it's good to see, because football is. Whatever team you support, everybody wants to experience great moments, because they happen very rarely when you look at it. I mean, you supported Newcastle for a long time. I mean, I've seen a lot of great moments supporting Arsenal, but in the overall scheme of things, they're quite rare, aren't they? Winning the league, winning cups, it doesn't happen every single season for most clubs. So any little moment that you get, it's great. And when you see other fans enjoying moments like that, I think it's great. And especially for Newcastle, because of the size of the club and the direction it's been heading in. And yes, there's a little part of me that kind of feels that from Arsenal's point of view in particular, it's at the moment, with the way our club's been run and the project with Arsenal at the moment seems to be bringing youth players that may well be good in 2 or 3 years' time. But now suddenly another club will be overtaking us, because no doubt Newcastle are going to buy ready-made players. They're not going to, yes, they're invested in youth, as you said, but they're also going to buy experienced players to come in straight away and improve the team and make you competitive. So that's another club that we're going to be falling behind. And I don't know whether or not that's going to make Arsenal react and think, right, okay, maybe Arsenal's owners might think, see how it goes, but we might need more investment in the right way to keep us from dropping down the league even further. I mean, it is kind of a worry from my point of view where it might leave Arsenal actually in the next 2 or 3 years, because if Newcastle are challenging in the top 4, then it's going to push us down an extra place probably, isn't it? Because we're already 8th as it were last year. We could be mid-table for the next 4 or 5 years, couldn't we, without investment? And it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I agree with what you said earlier. I'm a bit old school, and I don't really like the way that a club can come from nowhere, get a big, massive investment, and suddenly win the league, as Man City have done and Chelsea did. And I would prefer it if clubs built the right way, as maybe Arsenal did in the day. As I know Man United have always spent money, but they've always had the support. And they've kind of maybe earned it in a way as well. You know what I mean? And I kind of Liverpool as well, and I kind of like that. And I wouldn't want Arsenal to go down that route necessarily, but it's getting to the point where if we don't, are we ever going to be able to compete at the top level? Because I don't think it's possible now, is it?
I think the problem for Arsenal came when they mortgaged everything on the stadium, wasn't it? They stopped investing in players then. Arsene Wenger became kind of a Scrooge with the Arsenal coffers, so it seemed at the time, but it was obviously about this stadium, and having a good new stadium is great, but to me there was nothing wrong with Highbury. Highbury was a fantastic stadium.
It was just too small, wasn't it? That was the problem. I mean, we only had a 38,000 capacity, and we could have maybe extended it slightly, but it probably wouldn't have been more than sort of 42,000, 44,000. And maybe for the at the time, don't forget, we had a team that were winning the league, we were the invincible team and that kind of stuff. And I think the ambitions for the club at that time were there was no reason why we couldn't go on and dominate football in England and in Europe with that team. But to do that, we would have needed more match day revenue, a bigger capacity stadium. And I could understand the reasons why they wanted to move, because unfortunately Highbury, where it was with the listed buildings as well, and being all the houses around it, it was very difficult to extend it anymore. They made a bit of a mistake at the clock end when they put the executive boxes in. If they'd made that a 2-tier stand with the executive boxes in the middle, an Aston Villa type stand, then we could have maybe got another 5,000, 6,000 seats at the top, maybe, or maybe more. And maybe we could have stayed at Highbury, which would have been ideal. But that wasn't possible. And unfortunately, we were maybe forced into the move a little bit. And at the time, Chelsea hadn't had their investment. Man City were nowhere near getting their investment. We looked in a good position to have done it. If we were ever going to do it, that was the time when you think about it, I suppose. And it just, unfortunately, Chelsea got their investment at the same time. And then, we know what's happened with City soon afterwards. So it's become more and more difficult. And I think Arsenal now are over that issue. We've got the stadium. We have spent money since then, certainly in recent years, on players. It just seems to be the direction of the owners isn't the direction that maybe us as fans want to see Arsenal going. And maybe a bit similar to the position that you guys have been in, actually, under Ashley, to a different degree. I mean, obviously, we've still had success. We've still played in Europe and all that kind of stuff. But I don't feel the owners have had the ambition to make Arsenal great again. I mean, when I listened to Amanda Staveley yesterday, that's exactly what I want Arsenal's owners to be saying. And mean it. We want a challenge to win the Premier League. We want to be the top team. We want this. We want that. That's what I want to hear our owners saying. And they've never really said that. Not really. They've made a few little noises about things, but you can tell quite clearly from their actions that they don't want that. Or they're billionaires as well. Let's not forget the Cronkies that own Arsenal. They're nowhere near the same level of money that you guys have got, but they're still billionaire owners, and they could still fund the club in the way to move it forward, and they haven't done that. And it does worry me now, where this isn't going to be, unless the Premier League change the rules, this isn't going to be the last takeover, is it? There's going to be others coming in the next few years, I would imagine.
You'd think so, yeah. You'd think so. But I mean, I see Arsenal as a work in progress, and I think you will improve as the years go on. I think you're seeing that already this season. I think the improvements starting to come, and Arteta, I noticed today, he's been manager of the month. I mean, you wouldn't have said that a month ago, but it's getting players back fit, and whether it's the style of football you want to see or not, I mean, I think they were work in progress, and I think they're in a far better position than, say, a Tottenham, who are clearly at odds with each other. There's something not right there. I think they're in a far better position than the neighbours for sure. And if you're work in progress, you're getting there organically, aren't you? And I think that's what we'll do originally. I don't think we'll go in there signing your Neymar, new Mbappe in January. I think we'll be buying players to suit where we are at the moment, and that's the way forward. And then you bring your youth forward at the same time. I mean, Arsenal have got a great a few great players in that side now that have come through the youth system. I think you even now. I mean, with this investment we've got now, Arsenal are way ahead of where we are, and come the end of January, I think you'll still be ahead of us in that system. So you're a work in progress. I think you've got quite a bit to look forward to, actually.
To a certain degree, I can understand that, and I'm not convinced totally by that yet. I still think that, and also as well, I think that the plan of the growth at Arsenal it's quite a slow plan, if you like. It's not going to be happening quite quickly, and unfortunately, as we've seen previously with Chelsea and City, now we're going to see it with Newcastle. Other teams are just going to come in and steamroll all over us what our plans are, and we can make progress. But if our progress is slow and other clubs' progress is fast, we are going to get left behind, no matter how good our progress might be. You know, that's what worries me, actually. And you know, maybe 20 years ago, Arsenal's policy now would be good, would work, because it's the right way to do things, possibly. And I kind of like that. I just feel as though it's going to take too long, and not just Newcastle, but I fear other clubs as well are going to come in. It's already started to happen a little bit. You know, we've dropped down from being in the top 4 to being 8th in the league for 2 seasons in a row. And, you know, when you look at the Premier League at the moment, there's not an awful lot that makes me think we're going to finish a lot higher than that this year, particularly when you look at the teams above us that have all got stronger, much stronger. And obviously, I know maybe this season, I agree, maybe Newcastle aren't going to make those massive strides this season because you've only got one transfer window to come in January, which is a tough window anyway. But at least you can be rest assured that as long as you don't get relegated this season, which seems unlikely now, then you've got a really bright future to look forward to. And it seems like it can happen reasonably quickly, 3 or 4 years at the most. It took Manchester City 4 years, didn't it, from getting invested to win the league the first time. And yeah, the league is a bit different now. It might take a bit longer, but you've got more money to throw at it. So that might offset that. So at least you've got something to really get excited about now. But we don't really, because even though we may be making small progress, it's so small that other clubs we're not going to close that gap on the teams we need to. And other teams like yourselves are probably going to overtake us in the meantime while it's kind of working. And I don't know, I just think Arsenal need, I mean, maybe this might be the kick up the arse a few clubs need to think, you know what, if we don't start changing the way that we're approaching this, we are going to get left behind. Because already the getting in the top 4 is hard, isn't it? I mean, what do you think? How long do you think it might take Newcastle to be maybe challenging for the top 4? Because when you look at how strong that top 4 is, or top 5, 6 even, you know, it's tough, isn't it? And you know, it's buying the right players, it's getting the right manager. It's not going to happen in a year or 2, is it? Or do you think it might?
No. Next summer's going to be a hard window anyway, because we've got the World Cup, haven't we, in like October? So it's going to be an even harder window. I think the next season it'll be different, because I think the January window will be more key, because after the World Cup you always get players moving, players impress. They get big moves after the World Cup. So I think the January window next season will be the key one. I'm thinking if we can finish 15th to 12th this year after the start we've had, and then progress to maybe 7th to 10th the year after, and then maybe the year after that look at anywhere from 4th to 6th. Once you're in the top 4, then you're in the position with Champions League football and increased revenue from the football side. So I'm sure they're not going to fund it all from their own pockets. Eventually, it's going to start having to come from the football side. I'm thinking 5 years before we can challenge for the title, and that's what Amanda Staveley said too. 5 to 10 years, didn't she? So yeah. she's going to do it organically, I think.
Yeah, I say it did take Man City 4 years, didn't it, to win the league? I know they won the FA Cup the year before that. So
hey, an FA Cup would be great. A League Cup, anything. Some silverware in St James's Park, they're going to be hero worship. So a League Cup, an FA Cup. We haven't got the Simod Cup anymore, but you know, any kind of silverware that's a kind of major trophy would be fantastic for us.
Yeah, I mean, it maybe makes that defeat to Burnley in the Carabao Cup this season a little bit more painful now, doesn't it? Because if you're still in that now with a new manager coming in, I know you've still got the same players, but you know, a new manager sometimes gives you a big lift anyway, doesn't it? Regardless of that, so you know, maybe that was an opportunity missed for this season, but you know, there is still the FA Cup to come, of course, in January. And obviously looking ahead as well. We have had a couple more comments, and we've got a comment from Michael there. Says no money is too dirty for Americans or Englishmen. That's a fair point, I suppose. And Gary as well from DWTT says hello, Richard and Billy. How you doing, Gary? Thanks for tuning in. So, but yeah, I mean, I do think it's interesting times, isn't it, for football now, and obviously for Newcastle. I mean, it must be, from your point of view, to suddenly have a completely different ambitions for the club and for you guys as fans now. Like you just said, talking about winning trophies, that would have been the last thing on your mind for the last probably 15, 20 years, wasn't it, really? I mean, it must take a little while to get your head around all that, mustn't it?
Well, we had 14 years of the previous owner. Before that, we had Sam Allardyce, never going to win a trophy with him. Glenn Roeder, God bless him, did quite well with the resources he had. He took us from like the bottom of the table up into Europe in one season, which was a great achievement. And before that, we had Graham Souness. So we look at it kind of the guts of 20 years since we've had a side that could compete. Bobby Robson had a side that could compete. And Kevin Keegan had a side that could compete. Those times were great when we had them two managers. I mean, the buzz was fantastic. You used to go to the match expecting to win and knowing you're going to see a good football side play great football. Not had that for a long time. And so that's something we're definitely looking forward to. Just to see a side entertained, to get the teams come to St James's Park and be attacked and kind of looking at your side first rather than worrying about the opposition. That's just a minor thing. That's the first thing that's going to happen for us, I'm sure. Being confident going into games that we're going to win them. I mean, that's just the first thing. As I say, I've been praying for the Kevin Keegan time to come back again with better endings, obviously, and Sir Bobby Robson also. We had good sides then, very good sides. And like you say about the Chelsea Man City thing, we were in Champions League way before Chelsea and Man City were. Long time before. We were playing Champions League football in 1997. Yeah, so we're not Johnny come late to this whole thing like the Chelsea and Man City fans. I've been told by them already. I've had Chelsea fans saying oil money and all this kind of thing. It's ridiculous. It's forgetting where you've come from type of attitude. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing a side that will attack sides and watching a side that I'm happy to watch and entertained to watch, and inevitably be proud of being a supporter of. Yeah,
no, exactly, and I think that's I think for me, obviously I've seen Arsenal win trophies and stuff like that, and that is like that's a bonus, and I agree. You want to be able to feel enjoyment from watching the team play, knowing that you can compete and that you've got a chance of winning most games, and if you end up winning a trophy at the end of it, then that's fantastic. And if you don't, you can kind of console yourself in the fact that that was an enjoyable season, and sometimes it's easy to lose track of that, really, when you don't win things for a while and you're not even really challenging, you kind of, your priorities change a lot, don't they? I think.
Absolutely.
And I think it's nice to, I think we all want them dreams, like I said before. And I think it's nice to be able to have that, really. And yeah, maybe a little bit of me and maybe other fans are a little bit jealous of the fact that, you guys are going to have something to look forward to for the next few years. Whereas I don't feel our club in particular, we haven't got an awful lot to look forward to. I don't believe in real sense. Yes, slight improvements here and there, but that's not really enough, is it? I don't think for where we are. But yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of jealousy maybe, but I'm kind of pleased for you guys because I know how much the club means to everybody in Newcastle, and I know what a big, like you said, you've played in the Champions League a long time ago, and it's not like you're just some small club that's like a Man City. I always look at, I know they'd won the league before years ago, but not, you look at their history and the history of Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea had won the league once before Abramovich took over. They'd won it once in their whole history. That's where Chelsea were. They got sold for £1 by Ken Bates, didn't they, back in the 1980s? So you can't compare at all, can you? I mean, Chelsea fans have got no right to be, complaining about what's happened with Newcastle because of, from where they came from, what's happened to them. So, yeah, it's nice, isn't it, from a fan's perspective? I think to have that again, the excitement to look for, and maybe not necessarily this season particularly because you still got the same players. I totally agree. Do you think that things are going to change massively then in terms of, I know obviously you need to get out of the relegation zone first of all, don't you, for this season? Regardless of whether there's a change of manager, which seems inevitable, I suppose, and who comes in. I mean, with no new players, can you see massive improvements this season to pull away from that bottom three, bottom four, or not? Do you think it's going to be a struggle anyway?
I think it might be a bit of a struggle, but at least we're going to see players now playing where they should be playing on the pitch and not in foreign positions to them, because that's what's been happening all season. at the beginning of the season, Callum Wilson got injured, and he's got another centre forward on the bench, and he hasn't played him. He's played Dwight Gale's played 20 minutes of football. He's played a left winger at centre forward rather than play a centre forward at centre forward. He's played Matt Ritchie at left back all season when he's a left-sided midfield player. While he's got a left back sitting on the bench. He's played Isaac Hayden at centre half with two centre halves sitting on the bench. Isaac Hayden for CDM. Yeah, I think we'll improve for sure. It's inevitable we can't, because anyone with any kind of football brain, you play your players in their proper positions. That's just the first thing. Well, we also had this mentality of every week at a press conference, Steve Bruce will come out and tell the press how great the opposition is, how tough it will be for us to get anything out of them. And if you're saying that to the press, what's he saying to the players? A positive outlook to start with is a massive plus, in my opinion. And as I say, playing players in the right positions, and that's without changing any of the players that we've got. So yeah, I think we'll climb the table with a new manager. Yeah, without a doubt.
Do you not think a little bit though? I mean, you just mentioned in there, obviously Dwight Gale, for example. Is Dwight Gale good enough striker in the Premier League? You've got to say probably not. So maybe Steve Bruce has looked at it and thought, well, maybe St. Maximin is more of a threat, and you would have to say that he probably is more of a threat than Dwight Gale. So
yeah, but you're taking away the threat.
You can understand.
You're taking away the threat from the left side of the pitch, then, aren't you? Who's going to supply the ball for St. Maximin? I mean, basically the tactics have been kick the ball to St. Maximin and see what he does. That's it. And if someone puts two defenders on St. Maximin, that's the end of the. Forget it. Or three defenders, forget it, because no one else has got the quality to do anything.
Yeah, no, but that's the problem, isn't it? The problem is that you don't have good enough players in the squad, I would say, overall. One or two exceptions, as we said. But, and a new manager coming, they will change things, because all managers do. But ultimately, these are the players that you've got. And Callum Wilson, who's your main goal scorer, is still not fit to play. And that's a big problem, isn't it?
Apparently, he's back for the Spurs game, by all accounts. But, yeah, we've had a few injuries. But it's just a case of playing players in systems that fit to their abilities. We've been playing five at the back when we've only got, we finished 12th last year on the back of a really good win at the end of the season. And he's all the things that happened then, he stopped. He went to five at the back, and it hasn't worked in any shape, way, or form. He went to four at the back. We played well for a couple of games, but as soon as we went a goal down against Wolves last week, he went back to five at the back again. It's been managed horrifically by the manager. Everything about what he's done has been, in my opinion, wrong. In my opinion, so a new manager coming in, I'm sure it'll improve things by quite a bit. Some of the players we've got are quite. I mean, like Joe Willock is a fantastic example of that. He was played as a defensive midfielder for the beginning of the season when he was fit to come in. He's not a defensive midfielder; he's a box-to-box midfielder. Miguel Almiron, a centre midfielder. He's not a centre midfielder; he's a cam. He can float around right to left. So Maximin, as I say. For 2 seasons, he's played Joe Linton as a centre forward. When he's not a centre forward, he's a left-sided forward. Just small things like that. Obviously, Joe Linton, full stop, isn't good enough, but play him in the right positions, and then you might see better results. And I think a new manager will do that straight away.
Yeah, I mean, you'd imagine so. I mean, I suppose we'll just have to see exactly. I mean, how that works out, really. I mean, in terms of Joe Willock, I mean, really, what we should have done was we should have hung on a bit. We could have got more money for him now, couldn't we? Perhaps in January. we should have let you have a loan until January, and then we could have you could have bought him in January for probably like 90 million or something like that. That's what it'd be worth then with all the money that you've got. But how do you think he's done actually? Because he obviously scored a lot of goals for at the end of last season on loan, didn't he? And this season he's not scored yet, has he? Is that been him, or has it been the team, or has it been a bit of both?
I think the minutes in his legs have been a big factor in it. The first 2 or 3 weeks, you didn't really see him; he was invisible. But as each week's gone by, and he's got more minutes. Against Leeds, he had a really good game. He didn't score; he hasn't scored, mind you. And against Watford, he was superb. And he got injured in the Wolves game. So, yeah, I think it's getting the minutes in his legs. I think he only had 40 odd minutes for Arsenal pre-season. So as the weeks have gone on, and he's got himself better, he looks more like his old self again. Albeit without the goal product that was never going to be carried on anyway, was it? That was a lucky run of 8 games. He scored goals in each one, but it was never going to be kind of the norm for him. But yeah, he looks a hell of a player, and in his right position, I think he'll be an even better one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never quite felt it worked for him at Arsenal for one reason or another. He had plenty of opportunities. He played 70 odd games for Arsenal. Maybe not that many in the Premier League, but I never felt he was quite going to work with Arsenal for whatever reason. And of course, he went on loan last season, and like you said, scored all them goals. And I must admit, I was surprised how many goals he did score, because it scored a few for Arsenal. He always popped up with a goal. He was always likely to get a goal from midfield. If he played enough, he never really got a run in the team enough to maybe do that for Arsenal regularly. And I was a little bit surprised by that, but he went to show that he was capable of playing in the Premier League and doing well. And it's good for him, I think it is going to work out for him in the end. I think it's been a good move, and I'm sure he'll be a great player for you guys. It's just interesting now, though, isn't it? With this investment, there must be a few players at Newcastle that'll be a bit worried about their futures. Do you think there'll be quite a few out there now?
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, I imagine there will be. Yeah, it's interesting to see how they react. Will they push themselves to the max to try and keep themselves in at the club, or will they just think, oh God, what's the point of this? We're going to be gone. You don't know, do you? I guess that's up to the managers to see that in training, how they're reacting, and hopefully it'll be they'll improve the mental capacity of how to adapt to being at a club that's now the richest club in the world. Hopefully, if they don't, it'll be big trouble.
No, it's going to be interesting actually, because I do feel that it is. I mean, I remember when Manchester City got their money, and I know you spend it more gradually, but if you look at the team that they had at the start of that season when they got the money to the team that they had maybe a year or so later, it was completely different. And a lot of those players, you never even heard of them again. They just disappeared into the abyss of football wherever they went. And, that there's a concern for, I would say, a lot of the Newcastle players that some of them are going to end up on that scrap heap, aren't they, a little bit perhaps? And it's a shame because, it's their career at stake, isn't it, at the end of the day? Whether or not they're good enough for Newcastle or they're not is a matter for debate, I suppose. But ultimately, it's their livelihood, it's their career, isn't it? They could be just thrown on a scrap heap and end up playing in League One or League Two or somewhere like that, couldn't they? Not because they're not good players, but just because that's what seems to happen. It happened at clubs before, isn't it? And that'd be a shame, really, wouldn't it? For some of them.
That's football, though, isn't it? They know the risks and the advantages to what they're doing. I guess that's professional football, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is really, but yeah, I guess if you're at a club if you've been at Newcastle for the last 2 or 3 years, with the way the club was, you'd probably feel quite stable there, wouldn't you? You'd probably feel, I'm okay here because there's not the pressure to be any better, and I can just muddle along, do okay, pick up my paycheck and play in the Premier League, and everything's good. But suddenly now, like you said, we're going to see maybe a change in attitude, maybe, because some of these players are either going to have to step up or they're going to be shipped on, aren't they? Shipped out.
The ceiling's moved, Richard. Until 2 days ago, the ambition was to finish one place above the relegation zone.
Yeah.
And now it's certainly not that. It's quite a bit higher than that eventually. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think that we will see players shipped out, and obviously there'll be a huge outlay in new players. So I think that's football. But as I say, as fans, competing for 17th place isn't the place to be for any club, let alone Newcastle United.
No, definitely not. No, and I say it is about the ambitions now, and I'm sure there is going to be some really exciting times ahead for you guys. And yes, I'll be looking on a little bit jealous maybe when you're winning the Premier League and in the Champions League final in 5 years' time, whatever it is. But at least it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of guys, I suppose, rather than Chelsea or City that it's happened to before. So I suppose we can.
I just hope we do it in the right way, in an entertaining style and not a negative style. Not to call out Chelsea, but they're a very negative side to watch. And then that's where I like to watch Man City play. I admit they're a great side to watch, and so the money they've had pour in kind of fades off a bit because I actually enjoy watching Man City play. So you've got to have a bit of style about you, the way you play the game. I'm sure Newcastle's tradition will kind of instill that will happen with us now. Well, I hope so anyway.
Yeah, and I hope as well that they are going to use the money to invest in the youth, to invest in local football as well, and try and improve the area in terms of football, not just for Newcastle United, but for North East football in general. Because
it's not just football, Richard. I mean, the Rubens are heavily involved in the infrastructure in the actual city. They own the race course, Newcastle race course. They've got quite a lot of property in the city centre. They're doing a renovation in East Pilgrim Street. They own the Monument Mall. So, I mean, the Rubens brothers, who are part of the consortium, it's about the whole area economically, not just football. It's the full Monty, so it's great for everything, really.
Yeah, and I say if it's used in the right way, it could be a great thing for Newcastle in general. It could be a great thing for football as well, not only in the North East, but like you said, for the country. And that would be good if it was, wouldn't it? And it's easy to maybe for people to get a little bit negative about, another club with foreign investment that's just going to steamroll over everybody else. And it's easier for people to feel like that. But if it's done in the right way and if the investment's put into other areas as well, then I don't see it being a bad thing, even if it might negatively affect my club's chances of success because it's another team we've got to finish above or compete against, which makes it more harder, doesn't it, for us as well? So, but yeah, I think if it's done in the right way, I think it's going to be a good thing and it can be a positive for football. But I think we're going to have to wait and see how the Premier League responds to this because, and maybe not just the Premier League, maybe above them as well. I mean, if they're going to be putting, you mentioned a wage cap before and stuff like that, if they bring in things like that, a spending transfer cap, whatever it might be, and it almost makes the money that any club's got irrelevant if they're going to do that, doesn't it? It evens everything out, and then we'll be in a totally different situation, And imagine if that happened, you waited all this time to get that investment, and then suddenly the people that run football say, well, actually, you can't spend more than this. I know you got the financial fair play and stuff like that,
But ironically, because Mike Ashley hasn't spent any money over the past 14 years, we've got a financial fair play that actually doesn't affect us for 3 years. And we can spend, I think I've seen the figure of like £250 million in the next couple of windows. Spend it while you can, I guess. If it's something like that's coming along, spend it while you can.
It's got to be spent right, though, hasn't it? I suppose as well.
Yeah, I agree.
If you look at Manchester City when they first got the money, that they bought that, was it Robinho and a few other people? They spent a lot of money on it that wasn't going to take them forward, and I think that's important as well. You get the right manager in place first, and then spend the money in the right way to build the team that's going to be sustainable and create the future that you want, really, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it would be ironic, I suppose, if the league suddenly come in and change all the rules in the next year or two, and then it's like, well, which in a way would be the right thing to do it to a certain degree because it would make it more.
If they want to make the league competitive, I agree. Yeah,
yeah,
and it should be. But it is a competition at the end of the day. So I've been all for wage caps all along.
Yeah,
not anymore.
No, I mean. Seriously. I mean, it's funny because obviously there was all that hoo-ha about the European Super League at the end of last season, and a lot of clubs, well, pretty much every other club apart, even fans of the top 6 clubs probably, but there was a lot of negativity around it, and suddenly now you guys have got that money to have been in or to be considered now one of them big clubs. It's like if that was to happen in the future, Newcastle would probably be involved, wouldn't they now?
Yeah, no, to be honest, not for me. No, we want to be part of the English Premier League and. That's where it starts, and if you do well in that, then you play European competition. I want to be playing different teams every week, not the same 5. That's not, to me, that's not competition. You can't be relegated from.
No.
The ESL was a terrible idea, just to make money for those clubs, and not for me. I'm glad the clubs that are in it, fans of the clubs, so violently protested against it, and good on you all lot for doing that.
No, I mean I agree. I didn't want anything to do with that actually, and if Arsenal had entered a European Super League in that as the way it was portrayed as being, like you said, no relegation and you were just the same teams every year, then I wouldn't have wanted to be any part of that really. I don't think I'd even have watched it, to be totally honest with you. So I'm quite glad that didn't happen, but I do feel as though it's going to come back at some stage in a slightly different form. Almost it is now with a new Champions League for is it next season it's starting with, you've got an extra group stage and you've got these other clubs coming in. It's almost a similar kind of scenario in a different way, isn't it? Now, I suppose it's just under a different name, maybe. But yeah,
let's be honest. Money's doing European competition full stop. Like the European Cup, European Cup Winners' Cup, UEFA Cup. That was fantastic. That's what it should be now. Let's just have you can draw whoever in the first round. Let's not seed it. You can get drawn against Bayern Munich. You can get drawn against Dundalk. That's the way it should have been. It's a cup competition at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and it was ruined when it went Champions League, and again, all on the back of making clubs money, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember a few years. You'll probably remember it as well when Liverpool and Nottingham Forest met in the first round of the European Cup. The year after Forest had won it the first time, they drew in the first round, didn't they? And Forest went through and went on to win it again.
I think Liverpool were champions and Forest just won the league. I think that's what happened. Now,
was it that year? I know it was one of the years, wasn't it? That they played each other in the first round and Forest went through, didn't they? And in the end, they went on to win it. And it just goes to show that. I mean, obviously that's. Ideally, you wouldn't want the 2 English clubs to play each other in the first round, but
so what? Exactly. That's the way it's drawn. That's it.
The FA Cup, isn't it? Liverpool, Man United can play each other in the first round, and that's the way it goes, isn't it? And I agree. I used to like that, and yes, obviously now there's all them teams every year, 60 odd teams, whatever, is qualify for the Champions League, don't they? And then even the ones that don't get through the group end up in the Europa League. It's like ridiculous. Honestly, isn't it? They should go back
and the Cup Winners' Cup. The Cup Winners' Cup was a fantastic tournament. Great, I love watching the Cup Winners' Cup. Great tournament.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, that was the last trophy in Europe that we won, actually, in '94, the Cup Winners' Cup. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be quite in favour of bringing that back because it added teams wanted to win the FA Cup because it led you to being in that competition. Whereas now you're getting the Europa League qualifiers. I mean, where's the incentive there, really? Do you know what I mean? And now you've got that Conference League, the European Conference League, whatever that even is. And it's like, that's just a competition for nothing, isn't it? You know, you should be rewarded for winning things to be in Europe, not just finish. I mean, Tottenham finished 7th last year, got into that Conference League. I mean, you don't deserve to be in Europe finishing 7th in your league. You don't deserve to be rewarded for that, with a European competition.
Well, we've been in the Champions League 3 or 4 times and not been champions. That's
well, yeah. I mean, we have as well. You know, we were in the Champions League every year when we were finishing 4th and stuff like that. So it's crazy, really. And you know, I personally have never liked that. You should you should be in the Champion or the European Cup. If you finish maybe 2nd or 3rd, you should go into maybe the UEFA Cup, whatever it was, or you know. And then if you won the FA Cup, you go in the Cup Winners' Cup, and that's it. And then that's all the teams that need to go in Europe, and the rest of them are just, you know, maybe then people will take the League Cup more seriously because they'd have nothing else to rest players for, and it just like it used to be. I can remember when, you know, you'd pick your first 11 in the League Cup, you'd pick your first 11 in the FA Cup. You just, you know, your first 11 that was available and fit, you'd play them in every competition to try and win them. And now it's like, you know, I mean, Liverpool used to play like 70 odd games a season. They'd use like 15 players. You know what I mean? It's just, and now, you know, even if you do well in Europe, you're only going to play maybe 55 games, and they use like 35 players. It's like ridiculous. But
the prestige of all those competitions has gone, in my opinion. You know, the Champions League haven't got the prestige the European Cup had. Nowhere near. No,
it hasn't. It hasn't, and it is a real shame that everything's been devalued, really, and it's a shame because football is great, and you could see last night, for example, what it can bring to the community and the fans, and to go down the route that it's gone is wrong to me, and it's not been the right direction. But you know, there'll be fans of certain clubs in particular that have enjoyed the way it's gone because they've been able to enjoy a lot of success, and I'm sure you guys will get success as well. But hopefully, I'll say in the right way. But we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, I am chuffed for you guys. I'm just a little bit jealous, maybe, that we're going to get left behind and we might struggle on for the next few years while you guys are.
I'm jealous that you're actually there to see it. You're up in that neck of the woods to see it. I'm down here in Coventry. No one near me is a Newcastle supporter. You can at least see it.
I suppose that's good. I mean, obviously now I know a lot of Newcastle fans, and everyone I know supports Newcastle, so it's good in that way, and you can see how much it means to everyone. You know, maybe that's why. You know, I guess there'll be a lot of Arsenal fans that probably are totally against the whole idea of this happening, I would assume. And I can understand that as well. But maybe because I do now live in Newcastle, it's maybe I can understand exactly how important it is now, how much it's meant to people. And and that's what football's about. You want to have those moments and stuff like that. And it's great for football, maybe, even though, well, it's great for Newcastle, maybe not for football overall yet. We'll have to see how it works. We've got Judy in the chat there. She says, hi, Billy.
Hi, Judy.
And then she says there, do you not think there's a chance this might motivate the Cronkies to spend more and think hard about their investment, given the addition of another shark in the tank? Well, I kind of mentioned that before. Yeah, I'm hoping it might do, but I'm not confident that it will, because that's not their plan. That was never their plan. Their plan wasn't to buy Arsenal and make Arsenal a superpower in European football. That they're more interested in their American football clubs, and that's where their money goes. And Arsenal is just a side thing for them. And it's easy for them to put this project in with a young player. So it's a project we're building for the future. But everybody knows that in 2 or 3 years' time, if this team stays together with this manager, that now we're going to be overtaken by Newcastle in that period because of the spending power that you've got. We may well be overtaken by other clubs as well in that time frame, and that's not how football works anymore. You don't have 2 or 3 years to build a team, because other teams will build it in a year or they'll build it in 18 months, and you get left behind. And unless we do change our whole philosophy at the club with the Cronkies, then it isn't going to work. But I'm not confident that they will. We'll see what happens. I mean, you know, now's an opportunity. Maybe they might look at it and say, you know what, if we don't start investing a bit more properly, we are going to get left behind again. But I don't know. We've dropped down from, being invincible to being in the Champions League every year to being in the Europa League to now not being in Europe at all, being in mid-table. The decline under the Cronkies has been. You see where the direction is going, and maybe similar to what you guys saw with Mike Ashley, the way that the decline in the club, and I think we're suffering the same thing, just on a, we started at a higher place to begin with, I suppose. So our decline has only come halfway down the league as opposed to where you guys went. But I think it's a similar way. The club have gone backwards and down and on a downward spiral. Are these owners going to reverse that? I'm not confident they will, because they haven't done it so far. I think the only way things will change for Arsenal is if we do get another owner, a new owner's come in, they sell up, we get someone else in. There's that Daniel Ek who's supposed to be interested in buying or whatever it might be, but that's not going to happen. I wouldn't have thought anytime soon. But I'm not confident that the Cronkies will suddenly change their attitude and change their philosophy just because Newcastle have got investment. Maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, when Newcastle are in the top 4 winning stuff and we've dropped even further down, it'd be too late. And maybe then they might think about it, but it'll be too late. Now's the time to act, isn't it? For other clubs as well, not just Arsenal. Because if other clubs can't see that this is going to affect them, their chances of future success in the next few years, then I don't know what they're doing, because now's the opportunity to say, right, okay, Newcastle got this money, we need to start investing or we're going to get left behind. And hopefully Arsenal will do that, but I'm not convinced they will. You've
got to have the ambition first, Richard, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, all these other clubs came in and invested. It didn't make Mike Ashley want to suddenly invest more in Newcastle, did it? To let them compete. And I think our owners are the same.
All Mike Ashley ever wanted was just to finish 17th in the league and be able to go on Sky Sports twice a month or twice every 2 months or whatever with the Sports Direct brand advertised for free around the world. That was it. That was all his ambitions were.
Yeah, and I get the feeling with our owners, the Cronkies, that they want to use Arsenal as a way of generating money for them to invest into their American football team. And that seems to be what's happened. And
I'll tell you a story about Mike Ashley. Do you remember the year Alan Pardew managed to fluke us to 5th in the league and we got European football?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, qualified for the UEFA, whatever it is, UEFA Cup, what it was. I don't know if it was the Europa League then, but it was either one of the two.
Yeah,
last game after went to the game was the Bordeaux game. And before the season, Mike Ashley approached UEFA and said to them, now, I hear I'm not allowed to have advertising hoardings around the ground, advertising whatever, Sports Direct, which everything was Sports Direct. Am I legally obliged to actually play in this competition? Can I pull my club out of it? That's the God's honest truth.
Wow.
And they referred him to the Premier League and they said, if you don't play in it, we're going to give you come down here, look a ton of bricks. You will play in it. You're legally obliged to. Well, I'm not sure about flying my players over to Russia and this. I might get drawn against an Azerbaijan team. It's not financially viable. But if you don't play in it, we're going to do something. Yeah, whatever. But that's God's honest truth. Because you can advertise Sports Direct, didn't want to play in it, and asked if we could pull out of it.
Wow, that's
the kind of owner that we had, and that's why we're celebrating like madmen now.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I mean, that is an incredible story. That, when you think about it, because surely you'd want the best for the club, wouldn't you? So to have your club throughout the world and throughout Europe and doing well, surely that's what. But you'd imagine that's what an owner would want. But I don't feel our owners really want that, and certainly Mike Ashley didn't want that, did he? Quite clearly. So, but yeah, I mean, I think from your point of view, I would say that I think a lot of people were getting a little bit. What are Newcastle fans celebrating for? They haven't done anything, But ultimately, you're celebrating getting rid of your previous owner, and I'm sure that.
As much as anything, yeah.
And on the day when our owner finally sells up, I'm sure we will be exactly the same. We'll be over the moon that this owner's gone. Regardless of where that takes us, because you never know, dear. Just because you get a new owner doesn't necessarily mean the club's going to go in the right direction. It seems as though you've got the people there, like we said with Amanda Staveley and stuff like that, that look as though they've got the right plans in place, which is great. But it's all, you never know for certain, do you, until it actually happens. But
what we've got hope now. We've got transparency. Yeah. Obviously, Amanda Staveley looks like she likes to talk to the press, likes to talk to the fans. She wants to keep us involved. But hope, and we've got our club back, and that's the massive biggest thing that we can take from yesterday. Because success isn't guaranteed, but the hope in our heart that we might succeed is.
Well, when you get rid of someone out of the club that you know isn't the right person to take the club forward, that's got to be reason to celebrate on its own, hasn't it? Regardless of anything else. And that's I totally get that, and I would love us to be in that situation as well. You know, not necessarily getting some sort of Saudi investment or oil investment, whatever it is. Just getting rid of the current owners, getting someone in who cares about the club would do me for now.
I agree.
And if it leads to more success in the future, then that's even better, isn't it? Judy says here in the chat as well, she said, it's strange, but I used to look down on the Europa League as a tax. Extra games, tiring players out for the Prem. But if it was Arsenal last season that made me appreciate it, yeah. When you're not in Europe and you've been in Europe and then you're not in Europe, you kind of appreciate it, don't you? And she said, especially smashing the racists at Prague. Yeah, that was enjoyable when we beat them 4-0 in the Europa League. And yeah, no, I like European football because I like playing against those kind of teams because it's nice to play different teams, isn't it, than the Premier League teams every week. And I've kind of missed Europe this season, and hopefully we'll be back in it next year. But I've got to be honest, I'm not confident we will be the way things are going, but we'll see what happens on that side of it. But yeah, it'd be nice to be back in Europe, and I say hopefully it's an extra trophy to try and win, isn't it? At the end of the day, the more opportunities you've got, the better I look at it. Just, you know, if you're in 4 competitions instead of 3, you've got an extra chance to win something, and it keeps your season. Last season we got to the semi-final. It was disappointing to lose, but at least it keeps the season alive, regardless of everything else. You've got in April and May, you've got something to look forward to still, and that's, as a football fan, that's all you want really. If your season's over in January, what you got to look forward to for 4 months? Nothing. You might as well not bother watching it because it's pointless really. When you look at it, you've got nothing to look forward to. It's just meaningless games that's going to do nothing. At least if you've got a cup competition in Europe to look forward to, it's something to keep you interested and keep you excited. And like you said, that hope as well, isn't it? I suppose that's a big word, isn't it? Because
it's a huge word.
Yeah, that's what keeps us all going, isn't it? Every week, you know, you can see your team lose and be terrible, but you go away from that game with hope that next week's going to be better, the next game's going to be better, or next season's going to be better. You've always got a hope, haven't you? And usually it never fulfills that. But, you know, with you guys now, you've got the opportunity that your hope now is a little bit more realistic, maybe.
I'll put it like this. You look at the fixture list at the beginning of the season, and as a Newcastle fan for the last 14 years, don't fancy December, can't see us getting 2 points, 3 points there.
Yeah.
Them days are gone now. I'm hoping they are. You know. And
probably not this season
necessarily. Not immediately, no. Not immediately.
Yeah.
But beginning of a season, you'd look at, I hate November. We're not going to get a point in November.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not the way to be as a football fan. You've got to have ambition, optimism, and positivity. Because that's what it's all about. It's about entertainment at the end of the day, isn't it?
Once that hope's gone, then you've got nothing left, have you? There's nothing left. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, but you need to have that hope that things are going to get better and something to look forward to. And think, you know, you look at the fixtures and think, well, actually, we might win that game. And you've got to believe that somewhere, and you've got to have something to make you believe it, whether it's something on the pitch or whatever it is. And, you know, unfortunately with Arsenal, it's been difficult to have that actually in recent years, but we'll see what happens. It's still early days this season as well, but yeah, it's a big event that's happened this week, and it's obviously good for you guys. It's just I think it takes a little bit of time for everybody to maybe really understand and digest exactly what it means for everybody else, because it will have a knock-on effect elsewhere, won't it? Of course it will.
Sure it will. Yeah, I'm sure it will.
For good and bad, and let's hope that more good comes out of it ultimately for football than bad, because I just feel so far the takeovers that have happened previously haven't been good for football. They've been good for the clubs and the clubs alone. And they'd be hoping that maybe with Newcastle it might be different, and maybe things might help football in general, maybe, and certainly help football in the North East, which is in desperate need of something, isn't it? Because it's been through a difficult period for quite a number of years now, isn't it? North East football, it does need a boost, and it's got a boost now. Let's hope that it works out, and you know, I'm sure we'll all be looking at what happens over the next year or 2, 3 years and see how it develops, really, because I think it could be quite important for football in general. I just hope that Arsenal don't get too far left behind, because that would be a little bit annoying.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Let's hope so. We'll see what happens anyway. And but it's been great chatting to Billy about it all. And I know we're going to be doing a show together ourselves, aren't we, on the World of Sport TV next week. The Football Archive show, which is going to be good. Looking at North London. Looks at the North London derbies from 1970 to 89. That's going to be good stuff to talk about there. Loads of memories and stuff. Hopefully we can get a couple of people on as well to go through it with us. That'll be really good. So that'll be next week on World of Sport TV. So look out for that as well. That's going to be a good show. Definitely tune into that next week. And in the meantime, I'll be back on tonight with the Arsenal women's show looking at. It's been a busy week for Arsenal women. Actually, 2 big games, a good win in the WSL, and unfortunately a defeat in the Champions League. But it was to Barcelona, and everybody loses to them. And a big weekend. We're playing Everton, and then we've got another Champions League game next week as well against Hoffenheim. So loads on that show tonight. That's 7:30. So if you're around at 7:30, please everyone tune into that as well. And then this weekend it is international break, so there's no Premier League football. Give us a bit of a break, but we'll be covering the women's game on Sunday, doing a watch along of that as well. So tune in for all of that coming up. Thanks to Billy. Where can everyone find you? I know you're on the World of Sport TV. Have you got
That's
your
it, mate. World Sport TV. I'm exclusive to World Sport TV. That's it.
World exclusive, brilliant. Well, we look forward to seeing you on there, and obviously look forward to our show on Tuesday as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I say thanks to Billy for coming on. Thanks to everyone for watching the show. I say tune in tonight at 7:30 for the women's show. And in the meantime, of course, we've had a comment in this before we go. It's from Judy. She says, "Take care, Rich and Billy." Yeah, and yourself. Thanks for watching, Judy.
See you, Judy.
Thanks for your comments as well. Great to see you on the chat as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to Billy. Thanks to you guys. Speak to you later on. In the meantime, as always, come on, you Gunners. And well done to Newcastle for the takeover finally.
Cheers.
Enjoy it where you can. We'll be back to catch you up one day. Don't worry.
Absolutely.